Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited that you're here. As I've been saying in the previous episodes, we're recording this in advance. So if you are listening, which obviously you are, if you're hearing me speak right now, hey, they could be just watching because we do have videos. So I'd be about 39 weeks. So haven't had the baby yet. Vito's here with me today. That's who you just heard. I'm really excited to have him on the podcast. I always love it when he's here with me. And we're recording the video, but not sure if it's going to be up because we have to figure out how to edit when we're recording in person like this and not over Zoom. So I'm really excited to have you here with me.
I have a question.
Okay.
Maybe you don't know the answer to it.
Okay.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Great.
Why do people say it takes 9 months for a baby, but really it's 10?
Well, I was actually doing the math the other day, though, because it's not really 10 either, because they go from your last period. So from your 40 weeks. So somebody posted this the other day. Somebody that I follow in the birthing world was like, you're not pregnant for 9, you're pregnant for 10. And I'm like, that's not necessarily true because it's 40 weeks. So then you're assuming each month is 4 weeks,
Exactly 4 weeks,
which
right?
it isn't. Most months are 30 or 31 days. So most months, if you take 9 times an extra 2, that's an extra 18 days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So doing that math,
Yeah.
it's like more 9 months, but 40 weeks.
Sure.
You know, it's somewhere between 9.5, 10-ish.
And I have another question.
Yeah.
You know I have a lot of questions.
Love it.
Why when we go get like the ultrasound and stuff, they change due dates sometimes?
So that's very interesting. I was actually just talking to somebody about this because they changed their due date pretty drastically. And they were like, but I know when I conceived. And so they only do it depending on where it's at. Because based off of my last period, my due date would be November 16th. Mm-hmm. But based on our first ultrasound, it was November 19th. Mm-hmm. And it's also because the way that I had calculated it, I don't have 28-day cycles. I have 31. But they base it off of early ultrasound dating, usually, which is supposed to be the most accurate. But if it's over more than they don't change it unless it's over more than 1 week of a discrepancy. Okay. And then they'll change it. But I've heard of this happening. Like when I've talked to my providers, that's what they told me. Like unless it's over 1 week and they see like a big whatever difference. Yeah, they just leave it alone. Some places, I don't know. It's interesting to me. I mean, the whole due date concept is like from the guy who developed it is like from the 1700s or something. Yeah. So it's crazy. Midwives actually used to use a different technique, which was more accurate. And how I've posted before on my Instagram, like France, you're not considered due until 41 weeks, the way that they calculate it.
How far past 41 do they let you go before it becomes or there's studies because, like when you get past 42 weeks, then your risks of things
go up.
Right.
Well, I don't like the words, how far will they let you?
Right, sure.
But I think it's pretty similar, like 42, but there's not as much of a need because statistically speaking, most people who let their bodies go on their own go between 40 and 41 weeks. Okay. So I think it's like 40 plus 3 and 40 plus 4. Right. That's like statistically speaking, but there are people who carry longer. And that can also be hereditary. Like I've heard stories where like everybody in this family carried to like 43.5 weeks. That's just like how their family did it from like just stories that I've heard. My mom carried 2 of her babies, 42 plus 3, and got induced with both. So who knows how long she would have gone. And because she went so far with those 2, they induced early with the other 2. Yeah. So, and I've had one at 41 weeks and I've had one at 39 weeks. So
currently 39.
Yeah, but when this episode comes out, this is the week I'm due.
Okay.
I'm
So
40.
you're 39 right now. So from the mom's perspective,
Yeah.
you're 39 weeks.
Right.
And because in the States we say 40 weeks
Yeah.
is full term.
Well, 39 is considered full term.
Okay, but 40 is like the number.
Yeah.
What is it like for you hitting 39 weeks mentally? Like, where are you at mentally, emotionally? Does that affect you at all?
Yeah, I think this third pregnancy has been more of a mental game, just because I went at 39 with Tula. Okay. So you're like, but at this point with my pregnancy with her, I was having signs. I was having prodromal labor. I think I probably had already started to like lose some of my mucus plug. She came right at 39 weeks, and I'm going to be 39 weeks in a couple days. So I have zero signs of labor. Like, I have some Braxton Hicks and moodiness.
I was going to say, it's sign of labor 'cause-
Shut up.
Oh my God.
Come on, it's not that bad.
No, I just feel like you hate me right now.
No, I don't. You're just annoying right now.
Right, which is fine. Normally I'll annoy you, but you'll be like, oh, you're so cute. And now you're like, no, you're annoying. And I'm like, oh my God, our marriage is failing.
No.
We're falling apart.
No, not even close. I'm just sensitive to things, and there's a lot taking up my mental space. So like, you really aren't annoying. I'm just very easily irritable at everything. No, you just sometimes like say things, and I'm just like, I don't have time to deal with your crap. I can't right now. But then you tease me, and you know how to like break me down. Like yesterday, you're just being such a dork. And it just like breaks me down, and I'm like, ugh.
I don't want us to fight.
Yeah, well, we're not fighting. I'm just like, don't talk to me.
I get nervous. I get nervous when you're mad at me for more than like 15 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's not, to me, I'm upset. I get annoyed at you, but then like, I forget about it because I'm just in a different place mentally right now.
Sure.
You know, I'm just like, what else do I need to get done before the baby comes? What will make me feel more prepared?
So mentally though, 39 weeks is, so because you had Tula at 39 weeks, you're kind of like ready?
Yeah, I'm definitely ready. But I would say like for a lot of people listening, the 39 week thing, that's where I think a lot of people get tripped up because of the Arrive trial and how a lot of doctors will recommend inducing at 39 weeks because of that, which I'll link in the show notes, the research behind it, because it's total crap. Like you're comparing inductions to inductions. So people who got induced at 39 weeks and then people who got induced later, and also the cesarean rate that it wasn't a blind study. They knew they were being observed. The cesarean rate that they achieved overall in the study. Well, first of all, the group that got induced at 39 weeks had a 3% lesser chance of a cesarean than the people who got induced later. Also, the rate that they achieved, I think it was 19% cesarean rate in the 39 week group. Our national average is 34%. So these people knew they were being watched, and they were doing things differently and accordingly to avoid cesarean.
Sure.
That's not what OBs are doing. Now, they're inducing you at 39 weeks because the study says this thing, but are they limiting Pitocin? Are they limiting, different things? Like, no, they're putting you on the things that are leading. Now we're seeing that it's actually leading, especially in first-time moms, leading to higher cesarean rates. So I feel like it can be a mental game because your doctor comes in. I've had 2 people in the last year whose doctor played the dead baby card, that it's extremely dangerous for you to go past 40 weeks if your baby dies. Like, that's on you now, basically, because you're choosing not to be induced. Yeah. And that's just like such crap. It's like anything could happen at any time. And that's like the unpredictable thing about pregnancy, which is hard. It's really hard. But like, for them to tell you that, but not actually give you numbers and research, like scaring you into something, isn't good.
Yeah, I've never been to an OB.
You haven't?
No, it's from an ignorant standpoint, it seems wild that like birth just seems very natural.
Yeah.
You know, and it seems wild that here in the States we really try to do everything against nature when it comes to birth.
Right.
That's what it seems like from a man's outside perspective.
Well, that's also you've been brainwashed by me.
I mean, like, yeah, I listen to you talk about this all day, but I hear stories even from my siblings or cousins or whatever. I'm like, it just doesn't sound.
Well, right. And you have family that work with OBs too, and you hear what they say too, and they're like, yeah, I don't agree with this.
Yeah, and it's just like, wait, he said that, or she did. It just doesn't seem right.
Well, it's not. So that's like where you can actually look at the numbers and the statistics, because you're seeing that we are creating more interventions and we're having way more issues. Like the maternal death rate has jumped.
Well, I read the other day that the fetal death rate is going up.
Yes, the fetal death rate is going up too. So, right. It's like, I also think the amount of stress that OBs, I'm saying OBs, some midwives, but are putting on you from the beginning, even of planting seeds of doubt, putting different things in your head, stressing you out, like just like isn't great. But also I like want to acknowledge though that there's risk with any decision that we make. So for people out there who are like on the other end of the spectrum, because I am in the birth world, so like if you just want like a safe birth, give birth at home. Nothing's guaranteed. Anything can happen anywhere. If you want an intervention-free birth, yes, 99% of the time. Like, what did that one doctor say? Remember, we were at church and I was so mad at you. You introduced me to like your family's OB. You're like, yeah, she's a doula. So what do you think about home birth to this OB? And I'm like, oh my God.
But he gave a good answer.
Well, he was like 99% of the time, you don't need us there.
Right.
But it's that 1%.
For your first birth, I would do it at a hospital.
Yeah.
But after that, all things considered go well. He's like, basically said it's fine.
Right. And
coming from an OB, you were surprised with the answer. You were just mad that I
don't remember. Well, it put me on the spot, because also I don't like being on the spot like that, but you made it sound like I just like hate hospital birth, or like, you know what I mean? Like that I would only give birth at home or whatever.
Yeah, the best.
Which that's also part of the reason why we chose not to birth at home. With our first, there was like a couple of reasons, but one of the big ones for me is that the highest transfer rate is in first-time moms. The majority of transfers, 99% of transfers, aren't emergent. And I wouldn't have loved the hospital that I would have transferred to. I liked being able to choose my providers and choose where I was going, and knowing that that's where I was going to be for the entire thing. Yeah. And that's a different decision for different people, you know, but like being in, yes, I view things definitely more crunchy or holistic, but there's still risk with every single thing. You know, like even this pregnancy, like because of my significant hemorrhage last time, I have to basically, in order to birth at the birthing center, I have to do an oral medication upon arrival, and then get Pitocin in my thigh immediately after birth, which I don't love, but you know, talking through it with my midwives, and even I talked through it with a couple other people, I really wanted to try like just the herbal route, because there's some herbs that are like supposed to be absolutely amazing for hemorrhaging. Yeah. So I'm like, I want to see if this works, you know, but the birthing center also has certain guidelines to birth there. And that was like a choice, you know. I'm like, so I would, even if this birth goes perfectly, I wouldn't say it's intervention free, because there's still things happening. But also those things are things that happen at home too. Like your home birth midwife administers those things. There's things that like need to be done, need to happen sometimes. And that's where it's like, oh, thank God for these medicines, you know, and these things.
Last time when you were
yeah, they had to.
Yeah. Well, you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, last time they couldn't, my bleeding wasn't stopping.
Right.
You know, and they'd already tried one thing. And so they're like, listen, we need to do, this is the next step. And if this doesn't work, then the next step was to transfer to the hospital and get a blood transfusion. And thankfully it worked. So, but yeah, I mean, Birth is wild and it's amazing and it is very, very natural. But you see that a lot of other countries that use more natural methods and not as much intervention have lower maternal death rates, lower infant rates, higher like overall satisfaction rates, a lot of other things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, our numbers prove it, you know, that we're going backwards. But then that's also why there's like, you know, during COVID, home births skyrocketed. And the maternal death rate isn't going up from home births. It's from hospital births. I just want to clarify that because if people are like, well, if home births went up. Yeah, I mean, I don't have the exact numbers on me. I can leak something in the show notes, but what are you laughing at?
Like, stages of pregnancy where you're like constantly burping or hiccuping or...
You love it? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You
No,
do not.
It.
The other day you were like,
well, you're like, hey, I don't know.
You're like, I don't know what we can share on here. Yeah, and I'm
like,
constantly
hey,
out of breath.
Cute, but I threw up my mouth 3 times today. I was like, oh, okay. Well, good night.
You're like, hey, when I have sex tonight, I'm like, yeah, as long as you don't mind me, like, my acid reflux is kicking. I'm like throwing up in my mouth. Just face the other way. It's fine. Yeah.
Everything a man wants to hear.
Right. You're like, cool. I'm totally in the mood now. But yeah, I mean, I can share that information. But also because of everything that's happening, free birth is on the rise. A lot of women are choosing to free birth that means no midwife, no anything, just like at home by themselves. I can tell that just like gave you anxiety saying that. Yeah. Which is their choice. But I mean, you just have to completely assume risk for everything. I mean, if everything goes perfectly, you're like, wow, I just did that. I interviewed a lady on here who did a free birth. And also then if something doesn't go right, you know, that's also on you. For me, I've been asked as a doula to attend a free birth and I didn't feel comfortable with it. So I didn't go. And I myself personally wouldn't free birth, but I mean, that's how people do it all over the world as well too.
They do it with other women.
Yeah, a lot of times with other women, you're right.
Yeah,
but
in the tribe with midwives.
But sometimes.
Who have the experience and the herbs and the whatever. And
yeah.
Talking like in the jungle or the rainforest. Like Susie's not like, all right, guys, if you don't see me in a week, you're always in community. We're meant to be in community.
That's true. A lot of women are for sure, but I'm sure the other is true too. Yeah.
I saw a video once. This lady was pulling up to the hospital, walking with her
I think I've seen that.
And her husband, and just gave birth like
on the sidewalk, right?
Yeah, like right in front of the automatic doors.
Yeah.
Jeez. Could you?
Yeah, that's my fear. That's my fear.
Yeah, we'll be all right.
Yeah. Well, thank you for interviewing me, Mr. Presta.
Yeah, sorry, when you were talking, I had a couple questions.
Because I actually wanted to ask you about some stuff. This episode's coming out Thanksgiving week, so I also just wanted to like take a minute to say thank you to everybody who's been like listening to the podcast for so long, because like that really does, I feel like, keep me going. It is a labor of love, and I really do pour a lot into it. From,
again, someone standing outside, when you guys send in like personal stories or like thank yous, we've gotten like letters, or you've gotten letters, and Liz is like, babe, look at this, like, this makes me so happy. I'm so glad I get to just like help even one person. And
yeah.
She really does. You really do care. And
yeah.
It definitely, it's not like, the gain is, like you said, it's a labor of love. It's something you absolutely love to talk about and to research and to share. And the more people that can hear it and then maybe just even ask more questions, I know like brings you so much joy. And the more joyful that Liz is, the more joyful our marriage is. So I want to say thank you.
Yeah, no, I do enjoy it. And I'm just like grateful for like, sorry, for the amazing guests that like I've had on too, you know, like there's just been some like awesome people, and sometimes episodes I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go. It like goes great, you know. I feel like this last year I had some awesome people on, as I've just like also focused more on like fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, and all of that. And
yeah,
I got
some pretty good independent ones too, where you were nerding out on some stuff. I thought that was like, you did one on caffeine.
Well, I did one where I think I divided it into like, I talked about like 4 different things that episode. I genuinely enjoyed doing that. I think that that's going to happen a lot more next year. That there'll be some more just you know that I nerd out on research.
Right. It was great because you got to take it out
on the podcast and not on you.
Yeah, instead of on me.
Where I'm like, babe, did you know this? Vito makes fun of me. He says that I always say, well, studies show. But they do.
Yeah.
So why would I not share that? Yeah, I love research. I love diving into the nitty gritty. And I feel like I don't get to share a ton of it because I'm usually interviewing people. But I will drop it in here and there. So, but thank you to people who have been supporting the podcast. I'm excited for some more changes coming. And yeah, just, I know I've been podcasting forever, it seems like, but I feel like I'm finally like settling into who I am as a podcaster and what I really, really want this to be, and how I really want this to like grow more specifically versus doing episodes about everything. So I'm excited.
Yeah, good for you.
Thank you. But I wanted to talk to you about a man's perspective on some things, because everyone on here has heard a lot about my perspective and women's perspectives. And although I think there needs to be way more education and support for trying to conceive, for miscarriage, for pregnancy, for postpartum, for birth, for postpartum, for those of us going through it, we don't really ever talk about the male side of it. And so I'd love to pick your brain a little bit. You know, we were very, very fortunate that we didn't struggle a lot with trying to conceive. We did have like a couple of miscarriages, which was tough, which I feel like you were definitely my rock through that, and you're more like a logical mind. So, it was way more like emotional for me. But talk to me about like, we're pregnant. First of all, this pregnancy, you didn't believe me for like 6 months. Even after I was showing, you're like, oh my gosh, you're pregnant. I forgot. Yeah. Why?
Because you had lied to me. And you're like, I'm tracking my ovulation. It's impossible. It's 0% chance. Go for it. And
Babe, I
like,
lied to myself.
This is kind of PG-13-ish.
It's all right.
Like in the heat of it, we were having this conversation, and I'm like, "You're gonna get pregnant," and you're like, "It is impossible." And I was like, "Listen,"
I already ovulated.
Yeah, I was like, "I don't care if you get pregnant. You care right now," and you're like, "Just go for it," and you're now pregnant.
Yeah.
Like, I had believed you. You had convinced me.
Yeah.
That this was like, that the app and your watch were like synced up and everything was tracking this and that.
Yeah. So my ovulation strips and my Ava bracelet had told me that I had already ovulated.
Yeah. So I was just like, oh, okay, then you're good.
And I believed it.
Because you're, honestly, when it comes to like birth or all that stuff.
Right. I know more than
right,
you.
Yeah, but you've just been proven right. Even like you did an episode on that folic acid stuff, like last year or whatever. Mm-hmm. And now it's like a big thing. Folates, folic, whatever. Like you're just ahead of it. You know what you're talking about.
Thanks.
So you convinced me. And then you're like, hey, I'm pregnant. And I was like, nah. And then you would start showing it like, nah. Like it could, it just wasn't.
I'm pretty
right.
sure like I texted you a picture of 2 pregnancy tests and you were just like, what?
I was just laughing.
Yeah.
Because I was like, yeah, wow. So yeah. So what was the question?
So I'm pregnant now.
Yeah.
What? But first of all, yes. So I had believed it too.
Mm-hmm.
That which also like makes me rethink like what we're gonna do after we have this baby, because obviously our previous method of birth control didn't work well.
Well, it was working. But go ahead.
What do you mean it was working?
I was not going to
Right.
complete the act.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's like where the dates are a little confusing with this one. Because
So what's the
right.
question?
Okay. You're going to have a baby too.
Okay.
What's going on in your mind? Because like I know that sometimes it doesn't get real until the baby is here.
Yeah.
So like during pregnancy, are you like feeling anything really, or are you like,
During pregnancy,
okay, cool.
I think from my perspective, I have to remind myself to be more patient with you. I have to remind myself to be more like compassionate and to be more sensitive, because I'll treat you as if you're not pregnant, but you are pregnant,
Yeah.
which means that your hormones are different, your reactions are different, your sensitivity, everything is different. So for me, I have to constantly remind myself, like, oh, don't take that personally. You know?
Yeah.
Or, oh, like, don't bring this up. Or whatever. But then sometimes I just have to.
Sometimes you just have to.
I have to. So that's what's going on during pregnancy. During the later parts, like right now,
Yeah.
I'm looking around the house, looking around at like what we have going on, making sure everything is acceptable for a new person,
Mm-hmm.
a baby to be introduced. And I'm kind of, on my mind, I'm like freaking out because we're going to be outnumbered.
Mm-hmm.
But more the first, let's say the first couple weeks, I know I'm going to be doing everything I do plus everything you do when I get home.
Mm-hmm.
And the girls aren't used to that.
Mm-hmm.
And they are used to you. And kids are very much, from what I've experienced, they're very much creatures of like habit, and that they get comfort in routine. So that routine is going to be completely thrown in the blender. And now I'm going to be doing all the things that you do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little concerned about that. That, you know, that time might be a little more stressful, or like the girls might just be they might feel a little more stressed, and instead of getting the comfort from you, which they want, they'll be getting comfort from me, which they're not. I mean, I comfort them, but it's not what they want. They want their mom.
Mm-hmm.
Always. So I'm a little concerned about that, but I know we'll figure it out. And
I feel like the transition bringing Tula in was pretty smooth.
yeah, but it was one-on-one.
Yeah.
Like I got to just snuggle with Jovi, or I can just give her all of my attention.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now there's 2 of them,
Mm-hmm.
and they're both extremely different,
Yeah.
and they're both going through different stages of life now too. So now we have like, she's a toddler now technically, right?
Yeah.
So we have a toddler and like almost 2-year-old or whatever, 1.5-year-old. So there's all different emotions going on with that as well. It's not just like a 1.5-year-old and a newborn, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I can see where couples run into problems
Mm-hmm.
when they're having kids, especially kids back to back
Yeah.
and then back to back to back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not concerned about that because I feel like I do a pretty good job of just like not being mad at you that you know, I want this. We're
Yeah.
choosing. I want a big family.
Yeah.
And I understand this is the territory. This is just what comes with it. So, and then then I get stressed too of like, when's the baby coming? And then you know how I get during birth, where it's like, because of everything that happened with our first, I'm traumatized. So it's like,
what's going wrong. I don't get that vibe from you. I didn't get it during Tula. You seemed very, very calm, very, very
in the moment,
present.
I'm present with you because you're in so much pain.
Yeah.
Or you're like in such a weird, like a crazy place that I like have to be present with you. But then as soon as the baby's out and I can see that you're kind of like whatever, well then I'm like focused on the baby and on you. Because now you hemorrhaged last time. So now I got to like worry about you. But then the baby, Jovi wasn't breathing right. So then it's like all these things. And then, we got 2 kids at home waiting for us, So there's a lot going on. I think from a man's perspective, it's tough because in our society, we're taught from a young age. And I do think some of it's societal. I do think some of it's nature. That we have to be, like you said, like, well, I was your rock during all that stuff. I think that's just a natural way of being for most men. But it doesn't mean it's not. It doesn't mean it's easy for us.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that, like, when we see our wives in pain the way you are, if we see, like, our baby is vulnerable, like, yes, we're strong, we're leaders, we're the rock, let's call it. I don't know a different term you can call it, but in the time of extreme emotions, you have to have a logical sense too, because if everybody is just extremely emotional, we're gonna make poor decisions. But it doesn't mean I'm not feeling those extreme emotions.
Yeah.
So it is a weird dance you have to do as a man.
Yeah.
Most men. Some men, I don't get it. It bothers me. It really does. Where they're just totally checked out.
Yeah.
Or they're like, no, everything's fine. Or they're like on their phones or like watching movies or playing video games. I don't get
like
it.
During labor?
During labor, right after it. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like when we were at the hospital, people were walking in and out. And I was like, who are you?
What are you doing in here?
What are you doing in here? If you don't need to be in here, don't be in here.
Yeah, well, you very much show up, but you're also like that way with other things. Like you said, you always ask a million questions. Like even whenever you'd come to an appointment with me, like, what's this? What's that? Like you're inquisitive and like you're not afraid to like say something. Like even with Jovi, like when they were taking her to the NICU and they're like, oh, you can't come in here. And you're like, I can't, or you don't want me to. And like you kind of fought them on it and went in, a lot of people would have just been like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's just like not your nature.
Yeah. I guess because of every man I know personally wouldn't go for that. So
yeah.
It's weird to me because of the environment I'm in with the men that I grew up with.
Yeah.
And they're very much how I am in that sense.
Yeah.
Like I just don't get it when I hear stories or when I talk to people or you like, you see things online, whatever, where they're like, but like that's your wife, that's your child,
Right.
You have to show up. You have to man up. And I don't think man up. I think our older generation uses it wrong, but I do think it's a powerful phrase of like, man up. Like, yeah, your wife needs you, your kids need you. Be there, step up. And then when the dust settles, like, take care of yourself,
Yeah.
Let out some steam in a healthy way and talk to somebody for sure.
Well, what was like the transition, I guess, because this is our third now. So like, yes, stuff happened with Jovi and then things happened with me at the last one. But like if you remember Jovi, like it's our first kid, and then all of a sudden we bring home a child. Like, how has your world changed? Like, what's that postpartum like for you? Like, you worried about me before then. My safety, my whatever. No, not really. You're like, no, I didn't worry about you. Yeah. No.
I mean, yeah, I did, but
yeah.
You took care of yourself. You traveled the world.
Yeah.
I wasn't worried about you. But I think now that we have a kid, I worry about you.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't imagine, I don't even like going there.
No.
So, yeah, honestly, I don't remember my life before kids.
Right.
It's such a, I think the way I described it when we first had Jovi was, like, you have no idea what the experience is like, and you can't describe it to somebody. So, like, when you're young without kids and people are describing to you what kids is like, you're like, you have no concept of what they're saying.
Yeah.
So it's like I opened a door, and you don't just walk into a new room, you walk into, like, a whole new universe.
Yeah.
And, like, that's your world now.
Yeah.
So I don't remember what it was like before then.
Yeah.
But I think I worry more and I worry less.
Mm-hmm.
I worry, the things I used to worry about, like what people think or whatever, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But then you worry about, like, is the cheese old and my kid's gonna die or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
But like each time we bring a new kid home, are you like, that's another life that I'm responsible for?
Yeah, I think I view us as more of like a family unit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I just have to provide for us.
Mm-hmm.
I have to keep us safe.
Mm-hmm. Whether there's another kid there or not.
Yeah, you got to take care of that. Like, you have to nourish. Like, you're the nourishing person.
Yeah.
You're the nourishing partner. You're like, you take care of us with emotionally and nutritionally.
Yeah.
And
I think you very much take care of us emotionally, though, too.
yeah,
I mean, yes, I'm with the girls all day.
Emotionally.
Yeah, but like also when you get home from work, you don't check out.
No,
like you show up.
Another thing I don't understand.
You show up for the girls and you're emotionally involved with them. You're meeting their emotional needs when they're like, Papa, like you're playing with them, you're whatever. It's not like you're just like, just leave me alone. I need to like unwind. Like you're not that way at all. Like even if you've had like, I mean, you do work very long, hard days. Even if you've had like a really crappy day, you don't like just check out when you get home. You meet their emotional needs. Like you're a part of the bedtime routine. You're involved in their lives,
Yeah.
So I think you show up emotionally as well.
Yeah, I think we have different roles that we've decided on even before we got married, and
yeah,
I think you do a really good job with that. Now, I view us as more of like a unit than as like, oh, here's another human life. I have to, it's more like our family's growing.
Yeah. As far as postpartum goes, though, for you, do you feel like there's something like missing in the conversation or like a missing piece for guys? Because like I said, I mean, we know that there needs to be better support and more support for women postpartum,
sure.
But there's like zero conversation around men.
But that's the norm.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just postpartum. That's the norm.
What's the norm?
Like there's a
like there's just no conversation around men for
anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a thing.
Yeah.
Like if you ask a guy like, oh, who do you go to talk about things? Nobody.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before,
Mm-hmm.
like on this podcast or on ours. Guys just don't have that.
Yeah.
That's not a thing. Like girls have each other. They have moms groups, or they have Facebook groups, or they have your friends or whatever. I have my friends. There are certain times we will talk, but I've also known them since we were in second grade.
Yeah.
But as far as like if I'm having a hard day, who do I go to? If I can't go to you, I go to nobody.
Yeah.
But that's not just postpartum, that's with anything.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to postpartum specifically, I think what's something that's ignored, so men are just ignored, the fathers are ignored, which we're used to, so it's not like a huge deal. But I think that's something that goes, like, you're going to roll your eyes. And this is something that is serious, but doesn't get taken seriously. Which I understand too, that I don't know what the studies show on this, but like how people who are in like sexless marriages, I don't know how that works.
Right.
But when it comes to postpartum, where you literally can't do those sort of things, not that like, oh, men have needs and stuff like that. It's like there is like that's a real thing, and that's so. I don't know. I think just specifically postpartum because that's unique to postpartum. I don't know what the solution is, but just even being like opening up that conversation of I don't know what to do here because like I don't do that other stuff. It's not like for me.
Yeah.
So, but I do think it's like, oh my God, my husband's constantly every video you show me on Instagram is like, oh, my husband's just so excited to watch me take off my shirt or whatever, or like, oh, I put down the kids and my husband just like wants to have sex. All these things. It's like, I don't know what it is. I didn't build men, but that's a real thing. I think there needs to be a conversation between the husband and wife. Yeah. On like the real. I mean, I'm rolling my eyes, but like the real like struggle, quote unquote, where like there is, it's different. Like we are different, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Me and you are.
Yeah.
When we go more than 3 days or whatever, we're like we feel distant.
Yeah.
So now take that 3 days, 4 days, whatever it is, but do it over 6 weeks.
Yeah.
There's a distance there. And that's a struggle. And especially because all of your energy is getting taken.
Right. Like we're not feeling the struggle from my end because like all my energy is taken.
Right. And
you're
getting the touch, you're getting the everything.
Right.
But now like the men just
like I don't need that from you.
Right. Right.
Or I'm like,
which is fine.
Right, like a different, right.
But there is like, what were you saying? You need 8 hugs a day or something like that?
I don't remember what that one thing said.
It is, like,
yeah.
Hugging is a real thing. Yeah. So we hug every single day. Well, when you're postpartum and you have a baby on your boob and you're like exhausted, we don't really hug for a while. Right. Weeks.
Right. Like, it's like you have struggle. To like.
But you get that.
Yeah.
You're getting that connection. The husband gets nothing. Yeah. So now we go from like, being touchy-feely, whatever, even just hugging, whatever it is, snuggling, to hard stop. Yeah. For weeks. Yeah. Like that messes with you. I mean, I'll speak for myself, it messes with me. It's not even about the sex.
Yeah. Just the intimacy.
Intimacy, or even just physical touch. Like hugging or snuggling or whatever it is. It is something to get used to. And it's, like I said, it's like, oh my God, it seems so stupid, but it's really not. Like, you can't even imagine it because you don't get that. Right. Because I constantly have somebody on me. Hold the baby, like, as the man, you're not really connected to that baby until they start, like, engaging. Yeah. But you are because they've been inside of you for 9 months, and now you're their food source, you're their life source, everything. So you're getting full connection. The husband gets nothing for a while with the baby. Right. And then nothing from his wife. Yeah. So, like, Right, right. Specifically postpartum, I would say that's, like, unique to postpartum. Right. I mean, it's unique for us, for sure. Like you said, there's couples out there that don't that much anyways, or just, like, aren't touchy-feely maybe, or whatever it is. But I do think like opening up that conversation is important and making time to like engage with each other. I would man, like I'm a relationships coach or something. You pretty much are. Even if you're not pregnant and you are disconnected in that way, I would say open up the conversation and start being more intimate. Right. Hugging more, snuggling more, putting your phone down, just touching. Being present with each other. Yeah, but even the physical aspect. Like, yeah. I remember, I don't know when this started, but I remember the first couple of times it happened. Because we had never like not been on the couch together watching a movie and not touching. So I don't remember like when it was. You sit right on top of me every single time. Because you sit like in the middle. And so there's usually a small space on one side and a giant space on the other side. But I like being in that small space. So then it's like half on you and half in the corner.
But I remember like being on the couch and watching a movie and we were like on opposite ends and being like, this is weird. Like we weren't touching. We weren't like normally we're even, sometimes it's not comfortable to cuddle on the couch and watch a movie. And if we're going to like, yeah. And if we're going to lay down, then I know you're just going to pass out. I mean, you pass out sitting up. So, but we're usually like touching in some capacity, you know, and being like, wow, that's weird. But I mean, I think, well, thank you for sharing. I think that is important, to like open those conversations. And yeah, even before you have a kid, I mean, that's part of what, I mean, now we're talking about like, you know, specifically committed relationships, marriage, like it is two people. And we made a vow that we are one. And that's like what you and I believe. I know not everybody sees it the same way, but like you and I do believe that like we made a vow that we are one. Does that mean that I do everything you always ask or vice versa? Like, no, but we take each other's needs into account and we believe in like serving each other. Coming from that service mentality of like, what can I do for you? And I think that like really helps the intimacy because it's a lot easier for me to be intimate with you when like I feel like, yeah, you're serving me, I guess, like, especially with the kids, like it's a lot. And so at the end of the day, if like I'm laying down with Jovi until she falls asleep and then I come downstairs and I have to do all the dishes and I have to do like all these other things, then it's like, I'm tired. Like there's no time left for me, or I'm just like not in the mood then. But if it's like, you're going to lay down with her while I clean up, or I'm laying down with her while you clean up, or like we're just tag teaming, or you're playing with the kids after dinner so I can clean up. Those things like make such a big difference because then at the end of the day, there's like nothing left to do except for to spend time with each other. If you're choosing that versus just watching TV, being on your phone, being whatever. But yeah, I mean, adding the new baby into the mix is different. And I feel like we got a little taste of it this pregnancy because it really wasn't until this pregnancy that like, I feel like our intimacy took a little bit of a hit. I feel like we balanced really well with two kids, but for some reason, this pregnancy, we went from a very regular sex life to still a regular one, but not as frequent.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, we just have more things pulling our attention.
Right.
Which is going to happen.
Right.
Which is fine, but we make it a point, like, when I come home and, you know, like, you come to the door and you kiss me hello. And we don't just, like, kiss and, like, you kiss me, you know, and that's enough.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, when I was talking about, like, needs, it's not like, oh, we need to have sex, all this stuff. It's like, no, we need, like, so there's this whole thing of, like, oh, my God, I'm so touched out. Just don't touch me. Don't touch me. Imagine how that feels. Imagine if, like, you wanted to hug me and I was like, just two-handed, don't touch me.
Yeah.
Every time for a week.
Yeah.
Just 1 week.
Yeah, that sucks.
You'd be like, what is, you know. Mm-hmm. Even though you knew, like, whatever, I just had open heart surgery or whatever, that it would make sense for you to not to touch me. You would still feel like you need to touch me. Mm-hmm. You know, but nobody, it's never a conversation. And not that, like, men need it to be a conversation, but I think you do a good job. Like, you're a good partner where you will ask what I need, or, like, you'll anticipate it. So it does feel, because a lot of guys just, it feels good to know that you're even considering. Mm-hmm. Guys don't need a lot.
Yeah.
You know, because that's just how we are. That's how we're
made.
Raised,
yeah.
You know, a combination probably. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah. But now that the girls are like super snuggly, maybe I won't feel that way with this one.
Yeah.
Because I'll sit on the couch and they'll jump on my lap and we'll snuggle and watch a movie.
Right.
So maybe it'll be less.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, your time's going to be more busy too with both of them. But yeah, I do think, again, that's a important conversation to have. What about for like you said, like you don't really have anybody to talk to besides me, or you just don't talk to people about stuff. Like after going through a traumatic birth and Jovi being in the NICU, I know before we had Tula, you went through quite a bit emotionally. Like a lot was coming up for you because you're, I don't think you fully processed everything with Jovi. If there was a resource out there for men, would have you used it or probably not?
No.
Right.
No. I mean, I am a resource for men. Like I coach young men in college and stuff.
Right.
But that wasn't a thing. And every kid that I coach who's in college, they don't reach out. Their parents reach out, and then they do it reluctantly, and then they end up staying because they're like, holy crap, like this is great.
Yeah.
Know? But for somebody who it's not a thing, if there was a resource, would I reach out? My resource, and I would say most guys' resources are their friends, their guy friends. So like the whole golf thing, right? Like, oh, guys golf all the time. Just let your husband golf.
Yeah.
Like, I get we're not home as much, like if you're a stay-at-home mom or whatever. And yeah, we have stress that it's not just that, it's like men don't have community.
Yeah.
So let them.
Right.
And you do a good job with that.
Yeah, but you golf like a few times a year. Like but if your only day off, you had one day off a week and you were golfing every single weekend, that would be an issue.
If I was golfing the whole day, every time we try to golf, I'm always like, listen, the earliest tee time.
Right.
So we'll get like a 7 a.m. tee time. That way I'm back by noon. I got the whole day.
Right. But if that was every single weekend, I would have a problem with it.
Yeah, sure.
Because I don't, because as a mom who's staying home, I don't get to go out with my friends without kids either. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get to like just decompress and be with my friends. Like, we laugh because there's like reels on Instagram where it's like when you're getting together with your friends and the whole time your kid's like, watch me do this. And you're like, oh, like we're constantly like the last time I had the girls over in the basement, like the kids were literally just screaming at the top of their lungs and running in circles. And so you're like half having a conversation and half like, oh, he just like chewed up chocolate and spit it on the carpet. Cool. You know what I mean? Like you're like I'm half yelling at Hutch for eating the kids' snacks.
But
and
you
then
still have each other to laugh with.
Right. I get that. But
But I understand you do need time without kids. 100%.
Right. So if it's like, because we also want you during your free time to want to be with us. Right. So like I get the need to decompress. Right. That's what I'm saying.
Ask to go golfing.
Well, you don't ask. You don't need my permission.
I ask, are we doing anything this summer?
Right. But you're not like, can I go golfing? No. You're like, hey, we're going to, the guys start talking about going golfing this day. Do we have anything going on? Yeah. But like
if you're if your husband's using golf as an escape from like life, that's different.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like
men need community.
Right.
Physically in real time.
Yeah.
Like not just over text messages.
Right.
So I think that's important. That would be my resource.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a couple older, like mentorish kind of guys, like from church that I'll text randomly, but there's the guys from church, it's tough because they try to be like good Christian men.
Yeah.
And I need a guy who's just like not afraid to swear. I'm a blue collar guy, so like I probably swear too much. Just be real.
Yeah.
But I understand, they're trying to be like just good Christian guys.
Well, you're like a balance. You're like, I need a little faith and I need a little cursing.
Right. I don't think cursing is against the Bible personally, but
yeah.
That's not fair.
No, I was just thinking about your conversation with my mom.
Oh, it's such a great word. It is such a great word.
about it.
There are therapeutic ways to certain ways.
Yeah. But honestly, I don't feel like you curse that much. At least, like, I mean, I'm also, right, not at home because you're around the girls and whatever. Oh, I'm sure. You do concrete. Like, I hear how your dad and your brother speak in front of our children, and you don't. So thank you. But, yeah. Well, I think that is the hard thing. I think that there's like not enough conversations around supporting men postpartum, but even if there were, they probably wouldn't lean into it or take advantage of it.
A better resource for sure. Somebody needs to figure something out. I think about it a lot. It's tough because a lot of guys won't open up when multiple guys open up a lot one-on-one. This is why a lot of guys drink. They feel more...
Your inhibitions are down.
Right, your inhibitions are down. You're more like, oh, I can be emotional, this and that. I think that's a poor decision. I think drinking is terrible for you. Mm-hmm. But it shows that we guys need it, you know? Mm-hmm. But, like, am I going to call some guy that I see his number online? I might, I have to figure it out.
Yeah. Would you be more willing?
You gotta be friendly.
I think it's more like being willing. So for those of you listening, Vito and I have a different podcast, which we haven't done tons of, but we have some cool plans for this next year. And we're working on some cool stuff. I think it's more like, I think the wife has to enroll the husband. And a lot of times, and I think it's things like, hey, like, watch this video or take this course with me or do this questionnaire with me of like, how do we, make our marriage stronger? How do we prepare our marriage for kids? What do we view postpartum as? How do we view the roles of our parents in postpartum, in our kids' lives? How do we navigate those conversations? I know that that's something that comes up for a lot of people I know, is like the stories that I hear. I remember talking to somebody this summer who doesn't live here. It's nobody from here. And I met her at some event and just, they have 3 kids and her talking about the things that her mother-in-law would say to her, and her husband like never speaks up for her, and her mother-in-law like totally like intervenes in their lives and like is just like totally like, oh, you did this with the kid, you did, and her husband's just like, whereas like for me that wouldn't be cool. Or for you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you would be like, what the heck, mom? Like you would say something in the moment because that's just how you are. Just like the NICU, like you'd be like, what'd you just say? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. You just wouldn't tolerate that. But people don't realize how their in-laws are going to affect their lives until kids are in it. It's like, maybe I don't mind that you spend a lot of time with your parents or you call your mom or do all these different things, but now we have kids and you're still spending time with your parents while we're at home. Yeah. What? You know what I mean? Like,
I go to my parents' house before I come home.
Right. Yeah. Like that would not be cool with me either. Like, I want you to be excited to come see us. Yeah. And I think part of like getting married is like Can
I add something?
Yeah.
So from a guy's perspective, and this is not true for me.
Okay.
But from a guy's perspective, when I see that, if did you just spill all
I just completely missed my mouth. Dude, over the last like few days, it's happened like a couple of times really bad, like where I've literally just completely missed my mouth everywhere, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening.
So if I'm a guy and we have nobody to talk to, we have nobody to blow off steam or whatever, and then if I come home and my wife, who I'm most connected with, or I should be most connected with, who I pledged my life to, right? This is a human individual that I pledged my life to, and maybe over the course from that day to where you're at now, there's been disconnect or walls built up. You're the person, like the wife is the person that the man clings to for those needs, because we don't have anybody. not that we need like a ton of it, but you are who I talk to, right? Like you are my best friend. It's different than my other friends. But if I'm having my own life experience and I come home and then you're giving me a hard time, I'm not going to want to come home.
Yeah.
Or if I'm coming home and there isn't a flourishing relationship,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean it's an easy one. It doesn't mean that there's no problems, but it means
right.
that we're not having conversations, that we're not growing, that
right.
we're just like roommates, but you are like nagging me. I'm not going to come home.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I already have all my stuff that I have going on in my life. And you have your stuff that's going on too. But as a man, because we don't have that outlet, or we don't have people to talk to, or we don't have support,
mm-hmm.
when we come home and my wife is supposed to be my support, but now she's adding
mm-hmm.
to that negativity or to that stress,
yeah.
well, where do I go?
Mm-hmm.
Because now I'm drowning.
Yeah.
You know, guys have figured out kind of how to balance it, but there has to be something.
Mm-hmm.
And the wife, as men, we cling to you. Like, we're the most vulnerable with our wives. Men are not supposed to be vulnerable. We're 100% vulnerable with you.
Yeah.
But now you're telling me that I am doing things wrong, that I don't do enough, that I don't this and that. You know, you're
yeah.
just reinforcing all of my insecurities. Well, of course I'm going to go to my parents' house first.
Yeah.
Not blaming the wife, but have that conversation. It is the man's responsibility too to be like, hey, this is what's going on, and by you nagging or by you like adding to this, like it's really making it hard for me to be excited to come home.
Right. Well, and I think part of that too is this is not saying that doesn't happen every once in a while. That people have bad days.
For us, for sure.
Right. That there's like bad days or that there's whatever and we're just like on each other. But when it's like a constant thing, right. Like, yeah.
But 90, so what, there was an article that said that they can tell with 80% accuracy which couples were going to get divorced.
Mm-hmm.
And it was how they respond, how your spouse, so husband or wife, responds to you when you talk about your problems.
Yeah.
So when I say I had a hard day, how the spouse responds is a clear 80% indicator on whether or not the marriage will be successful or not.
Mm-hmm.
So if I say, I am so stressed out, and you respond with, you're stressed out, I'm stressed out.
Yeah.
Those marriages,
yeah,
with an 80% indication, end in divorce.
Right.
And for you, now for us, like personally, when I say like, I'm just losing my mind, I'm having a terrible day, you say, I'm so sorry, how can I help? You know, it's complete service.
I feel like we do a good job at like, when you're super stressed out, I try to like take a load off. And when I am, you try to take a load off. But it's also because we've had those conversations.
Yeah. And there are days where we're both stressed out and we're both mad at each other. And
yeah.
It's just kind of like we sort of veer away from each other. But at night, at the end of the day, like the other day you were taking a bath or something. I came in, I'm like, just so you know, this is BS when you do this. I even forgot what
I have no idea
what
you're talking about.
I kind of like yelled at you or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to talk about it. Oh, because I was stressed about something with my family, and you took it as I was mad at you.
I know what you're talking about now.
I was giving you a silent treatment. I'm like, no, I was mad. I removed myself from the situation, but you took it personally, and you were mad at me. So I'm like, fantastic. I got this going on. Now my wife is mad at me because she's making stuff up in her head, and it was just building all day. So you were taking a bath. I was like, listen, this is what was happening today, and it was BS when you did this. I don't want to talk about it, but I need you to know, like, don't do that again. So and that was it. And then I don't even think we talked about it after that.
No.
But I knew you heard me, because you weren't defending yourself.
Right.
You took it, and I know you heard me. You know?
Right.
So it does, but these are conversations, right? Like I feel comfortable that I can tell you that, and I know that it might not happen again for the next like 5 years, but I'm sure.
I'm sure it'll happen again. Well, I think so. Something that we haven't also like talked about, I guess, on here, but we have like on our other podcast, that I think is also really important to bring up, especially when you're adding kids to a situation, is that you're never going to understand how the other person is fully feeling. So, you know, for you to be like, you come home from work exhausted, you work very differently, right? You physically labor all day. You wake up very early. I mean, right now I'm 9 months pregnant and nursing a toddler, and like just getting up and going to the bathroom's exhausting. But like in normal life, it's, I feel like emotionally drained parenting, and other things. So like when you're like, oh, I'm just so exhausted. And for me to be like, you're exhausted, I'm exhausted. Like I was up with our toddler, I was doing this thing, you know what I mean? You can't get into that comparison game in this because you're both allowed to feel exhausted. Right. So for me to, you know, I remember being at the park, and I was telling you about it because this lady, they have one kid, and she was telling somebody else, and I was standing right there, that her husband, he came home from work. He's like, man, I'm just so exhausted. She goes, you're exhausted? You don't like you don't get it. I'm exhausted. And basically like berating him for him feeling tired. And it's like, he's allowed to be exhausted too.
That's not going to go well at all.
Right. Like,
I'm not a professional, but that's not going to go well at all.
But that's also where these conversations are important, because it's like, you're never going to know what it feels like to be in my situation. Ever. I'm not going to know what it's like to be in your situation. Right. Not just physically. Obviously, right now, I'm 9 months pregnant. You work really hard. But even emotionally. Mm-hmm. Like, for our family, you bear the burden of provision. You know, you have your own business that you're running, and two businesses, and I have my own stuff, you know, like I'm never going to fully know, but we're not meant to. You don't have to, but you need to acknowledge and validate each other. Yeah. So like if you come home and you're like, man, I'm so exhausted, and like I had a really hard day and I barely slept that night, like you can be like, oh, really? Like, I'm so exhausted too. You know, like we've said that before, where we're both just like, oh my gosh, we're both so tired, but we both have to keep going, you know, like you have no choice, but we can't compare. But I can't, like, who am I to tell you you're exhausted? No, you don't get to be exhausted. How am I like,
what do you gain from even,
right? It becomes this comparison thing though, because being a stay-at-home mom is really, really tough. It is and it isn't. Like it ebbs and flows, you know. But working full time is really tough. You know, like it's life. We're all doing life. Right. And nobody said it was going to be, but we don't have to like compare. Like we're in this season where it's going to be we're both going to be tired. You know? So it's like, you can't compare.
Yeah, I think that's good advice.
Yeah. You have to talk for a minute so I can let Hutch out.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine. You're not going to.
I don't know.
What, watching me get up?
Watching you move at 9 months pregnant it honestly does bring me joy. Not because you're in pain or because you're like very slow moving and you waddle and stuff. It is just funny to me. I find it comical. I think it's entertaining.
My limp? My pimp walk?
Now when you do it and you're not pregnant, it's infuriating.
When I do what?
When you like
limp?
Oh, my knees, oh my.
And I'm not. Why is it infuriating? I can't help it.
30 something.
Okay, I can't help that my knees hurt. Babe, what if I did that every time that you felt sick?
If it happens every once in a while.
And I was like, you're 30 something, Vito.
Yeah,
Figure it out.
Throwing up. It's different.
Yeah.
I was walking with a limp. You'd be like, Vito, what's going on here?
Mm-hmm. I can't help it.
You got any other questions for me?
No. I mean, I think I just really wanted to, pick your brain about postpartum and see, like, if there was something, if you would do it, or, yeah, I don't know. What are you most looking forward to about this next one?
Just growing the family. I think this one's stressing me out. For sure, just being outnumbered. But, I don't know, I feel like every time we have another kid, the whole dynamic changes, and it becomes more fun and, like, more fulfilling, and we get to grow together. And I think I like challenges, and I think a challenge that we're going to have coming up is going to be the intimacy between us. I think we're going to have to go on more dates, which I'm not used to. We're going to need to get away.
But on dates, like, is that where the intimacy happens?
Yeah, it's just me and you. We're just talking. We just have time.
Yeah. I think Tula's crying.
Yeah. I don't think she's, like, crying right now. I think she'll go to sleep.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely have to make more time. I mean, we went on like 6 dates this year. Maybe not even that, just us two.
I don't think we got that
Yeah.
many.
But we're not like going out people. And we have I think it's also because we have a ton of like, we put the kids down and we like, we'll sit and talk, or we'll lay in bed and talk.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to have it that. I think
Right. That's what's going to,
That's
right. Where we're going to have to like leave to be able to do that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, got to find some babysitters.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, I'm excited. I'm really excited to give birth. I'm excited to share it. Looking forward to like not being pregnant anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful
Thanks.
that you're a great mom and that you take care of us and you nutritionally take care of us. And I'm excited, nervous for sure, but excited.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see. All girls, huh?
Probably.
For some reason, like I genuinely convinced myself all girls, but I think this one's gonna be a boy. But it's not. It's gonna be a girl, which is great, which is fine. It's a healthy baby, healthy mom. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
But lately, I'm like, oh my god, it's a boy.
Yeah. I have no idea.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm excited to share. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah.
And everybody enjoy your Thanksgiving week. Bye.